What's a mispronunciation that sends you into fits of rage? My coworker keeps saying "Ask Rix" instead of asterisk. It drives me insane. I had a boss once who would always call it a physical year. It took me longer than I care to admit to realize that she actually meant fiscal year. It's amazing how much more sense my job made after that, lol. I went on one date with a fellow who said that 16th Chapel. He took me to a Thai restaurant. I try not to get worked up about mispronunciations. But I had a manager who said verbatim instead of verbatim. And I winced every time she said it. My one boss will type another words in emails. My boyfriend doesn't pronounce the first R in frustrated. He sounds like a child and it's, well, frustrating. My mum cannot pronounce Chipotle. She says Chipotle. I work in a hotel. The number of people that refer to adjoining rooms, meaning to have the connecting door between them, as ca joined, not conjoined, which is still wrong but still less wrong, makes me want to rage punch them. Call them adjoining. Call them connecting. Call them adjacent even. But ca joined is not a goddamn word. When people say especially instead of especially. Not a pronunciation, but I see people switch sale and sell in social media all the time and it boggles my mind they don't know the difference. Suddenly my username is relevant. Acid reflex. Mute for moot. It's wreak havoc, not wreck. Frustrated makes me frustrated. My wife says mannerism like aneurysm and I think she's going to cause me to have one. Acrost. I was in a chocolate shop once and a family was in there. The father goes, "Wow. Look at this. Chocolate-covered jalapenos." He pronounced it completely correctly. His family burst out laughing and mocked him for his pronunciation. He asked what was going on and the daughter says, "You say it's so weird. It's jalapeno." The whole family agrees with her and he's like, "Are you sure?" They're mocking this man and he's correct. But then he just has to agree because they're relentless. I lost my mind that day. When people say weary instead of wary, I'm generally weary of strangers, bitch, I'm growing mighty weary of you. For all intensive purposes. Library instead of library. Nuclear instead of nuclear. I can't pronounce a quarter. I am stupid. Take it for granite. Marine Corps pronounced as corpse. Used to work in a place that dealt with a lot of veterans and I had a coworker that could not say the word correctly. Drove me batty. She also pronounced the S in Illinois. Someone saying Pacific instead of specific. Italian edit, thanks for the awards. Height as heighth. Makes me irrationally angry and I can't explain why, edit, missing a word. Supposedly. It's supposedly. People saying, for all intensive purposes, instead of, for all intents and purposes. 2 a.m. in the morning, 11 p.m. at night, etc. This is not the correct place for this. I don't get mad but Cadillac converter. I enjoy watching true crime videos on YouTube. And a stunning amount of true crime-focused YouTubers pronounce the word indicted as indicted. Which just, this is what you do for a living and you don't know how to pronounce that word correctly. Espresso vs expressagif vs gif. When they're trying to illustrate a point by flushing it out. For fuck's sake. It's fleshing it out. Like putting flesh on a skeletal model. Not like flushing a turd, dumbass. My ex would say, generally, in place of genuinely, and did not understand why it was wrong, edit. To the folks saying, that's why she's your ex. Nah, it's not. This was a pet peeve for sure. But it didn't have any impact on the relationship. She was a perfectly fine person. Things just didn't work out and I called it. Realtor for realtor. Bagel. Maybe doesn't totally count since it's more grammatical perhaps than pronunciation, but it's would have, should have, could have. Not would of, also. I could care less. My wife, sandwich. Literally, and literary, are not the same. Teacher here. Just sat through 6 classes of a guest speaker from the police department who kept saying trafficked as traffic ID, and it got more egregious every class throughout the day. Fucking Reese's Pieces. Worcestershire. Etc. When 95% of all English-speaking people say etc. when it should be etc. Foy lager. Not a mispronunciation, but it really bugs me when someone uses then when they should had used then when commenting here on Reddit. I literally can't go a single day on this site without seeing that mistake. Something. Vanilla folder instead of manila folder. My mother is not among the living anymore. And I miss her every day. But she always said chipotle rather than chipotle. If you're reading this over my shoulder. Mum, I love you and miss you. But I had to call you out. Pronouncing the state of Illinois as Illinois. The S is silent. You don't hear anyone pronounce the silent S in Arkansas. Do you? Anything. When people say escape instead of escape, pouting. My sister says frustrated and it drives me bonkers. Nuclear instead of nuclear. Even once watched a documentary where the narrator said it the first way instead of the right way. And I just lost my shit. A fucking Nat Geo documentary. My mill says measure like measure. I have a professor this semester who pronounces stereotypes like stereotypies. I could care less, not really a mispronunciation but still annoys me. As someone who works in telecom, telephony, hard to write a description on how to pronounce it. But the best way to describe it is to say it like you would say teléfono for Spanish. Irregardless of where you're from. If you ask me specifically, it's GIF. Now you'll probably argue about what the creator said versus every other English word starting with GI consonant. But for all intensive purposes, it should be GIF. I could care less what your reasoning is otherwise. It's pretty elementary. Prostrate instead of prostate. The first is lying face down. The second an incredible orgasmic gland deep inside males. Often approached while a male is prostrate. Turmeric, when pronounced turmeric or turmeric. Tur. It's fucking tur. Niche when trying to say niche. Definitely. I have a coworker who mispronounced Persephone for months. It made me giggle every time. He would pronounce it Persephone. Like a phone in one's purse. We finally told him the proper pronunciation. His native language is not English and has very little, if any, Greek influence. So it didn't make me angry. Getting angry about something like that is silly. But it did make me giggle. It's Alzheimer's, not Alzheimer's or old-timers. I don't care how clever you think it is. Someone saying pronunciation instead of pronunciation. In Turkey the language is phonetic. So when they say time they say Timmy, when they say mine it's Minnie, but for some fucking reason they've decided to not pronounce the E in Beyoncé. Drives me crazy. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.